is Paola Morsiani. I'm the director of the Brodsky Center, and I'm so happy that you're here today. The Brodsky Center is a program here at PAFA that commissions new work in print and paper from artists that then are made available for collecting. So I couldn't be more thrilled to have two collectors and a curator here with us today to talk about how to start your own collection. With us today is Anne McCollum. Hi, Anne. She is the chair emerita of the Board of Trustees of the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts and a long-time supporter of the institution. She began her involvement more than 3 decades ago as a docent and has since served in numerous leadership roles, including being the first female board chair here at PAFA. In addition to her governance work, she's an active art collector with a strong commitment to supporting artists and expanding access to the arts. And then we have Conrad Woody Jr, who is also a trustee of PAFA. Thank you for being with us and for doing that. We really are so happy to have two trustees here today. And he's a managing partner in the Washington office and the head of the U.S. Association and Corporate Affairs Practice at Odgers. And an engaged collector, he brings both professional leadership experience and a personal passion for art to conversations about building and sustaining meaningful collection. My colleague, Leah Triplett, is here today. Also, she's our Curator of Contemporary Art here at PAFA. She's a curator and writer based in Philadelphia. And at PAFA, she is co-organizing the 2026 reinstallation of the permanent collection of 283 objects, including the reinterpretation and presentation of select artworks from 1960 to the present. Triplett has also spearheaded the return of the Morris Gallery. Wow, this is fantastic. PAFA's exhibition space for artists who have not previously had an institutional showcase. Exhibitions for PAFA that she curated include Kathy Gegenheimer, We Have Only Just Begun, which is opening on April 12th. The East Coast presentation of William Villalongo, Myth and Migrations, which was here at PAFA in 2025. New Horizons, recent contemporary acquisitions in 2025 as well, and Artists as Cultivator in 2024. Previously, she was a curator for Boston's Now and They, are organizing 30 temporary site-specific public artworks throughout the city, and co-founding the Public Art Accelerator for emerging artists interested in bringing their work beyond the studio. She has also organized exhibitions for Boston University Gallery, Praise Shadows Art Gallery, Abigail Ogilvie Gallery in Boston, Trestle Gallery, right? That's in Boston.
That's in New York.
New York, okay, sorry. Trestle Gallery, the Herder Gallery, and others. Her writing has appeared in publications such as Art Asia Pacific, Art Net News, the Brooklyn Rail, CMAG, Flash Art, Hyperallergic, Public Art Dialogue, and Sculpture. She has taught critical writing in the Painting and Sculpture MFA programs at Boston University from 2021 to 2023, and she's currently the Mary Ann Unger Estate Fellow, researching the artist's work in the 1970s and 1980s. In 2025, she was a visiting curator in Dublin at Fire Station Artist Studios. Welcome. And now I'm going to give back the microphone to Ingrid Spengler, who is a member of our educational team.
Community Education and Engagement. My name is Ingrid Spangler, and thank you so much, Paula, and welcome to everybody today. So when I say the phrase art collecting, some of us might think of the high-profile auctions that we might see on the news where artworks are selling for millions and millions of dollars. And if this is all you see, art collecting can seem mysterious, intimidating, exclusive, confusing, but the reality is there are a lot of different people collecting art for a lot of different reasons with a lot of different budgets and a lot of different motivations. So we're so lucky to have this panel here today. And if you're in the audience and whether you're already collecting, whether you are thinking about making your first acquisition, or whether you're just curious as to how art collecting supports and shapes the broader art community and the art ecosystem, you're in the right place. It's a rainy day, you're inside and warm with great people talking about art. What could be better? Okay, so let's get started. And I would love to start with you. We have some of your slides back here of your collection. Can you just start us off and tell us how you got started collecting art and what some of your early experiences were?
Sure. I was lucky as a child to be able to travel the world frequently. And one of my passions when I wasn't traveling was the board game Masterpiece, which involved major paintings that are part of, the Western European art history touchstones. And I would play the game against other people. I would play the game creating gallery layouts of the works that I wanted to highlight in my bedroom at that particular time. So that was my entree into it. I studied foreign service and history at university. Travel was always important. Art was always important. But it wasn't until later in life when I worked on my master's in art history at the University of Pennsylvania. And that helped me through this process, because I have to say that when I started out, I bought things that appealed to me. In my dorm room, that might have been a poster from the National Gallery of, Monet's Water Lilies. That didn't stick around as I moved through the world. And so I started creating in collecting in some African countries, in Asia, in other places, to help me figure out what I wanted my aesthetic to be. And I believe that that's sort of baked into each person and each collector, but it's a discovery process.
Conrad, I'd love to move to you next. Can you tell us a little bit about what your early experience was like?
Yeah, so I just started collecting in 2020, so I'm relatively new, but it's going to be a life passion of what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I started as a child as a musician, so I played the piano, bass guitar, organ, and drum, so I had a foundation and appreciation for the arts, but it wasn't until I met a friend in 2019 at the Baltimore Museum of Art, an amazing exhibition that I got lost in. He said, hey, I said to him flippantly, I would like to collect art, but I can't afford it. He was like, yes, you can. I was like, well, what do you mean? He was like, all you got to do is be present, supportive, and consistent, and then you'll be in the art world. I was like, I don't believe you, sir. I don't think that's the right idea. So I had him down to my home in February 2020, right before the pandemic, and we did art collecting and investing brunch at our house, where he walked us through the steps of becoming an art collector. And a lot of it is just going out and seeing and feeling. And here I am, 6 years later, as a collector and a trustee for one of the most consequential museums in the United States. And so what I'd like to share with you all today is just go out and start and see and feel.
And Leah, before we get to you, can you just take a minute and tell the audience what you do here as a curator and how you work with collectors here at the museum? Because that's a different perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I'm laughing a little bit because every day is an entirely new day, which is one of the reasons why I love my job. And the other really amazing component of my job that I just get overwhelmed of even thinking about is getting to work with amazing works of art and amazing people that want to support art and artists, like Conrad and Anne here. So it's really wonderful to share this stage. Every day is a little bit different for me. Right now, we're in the first week of a 4-week installation for our reinstallation of the permanent collection next door in our historic landmark building. That's opening April 12th, so I hope I'll see everyone here and everyone online in the flesh in the building next door. We're also reopening the Morris Gallery, so we're also installing a show there, which is an entirely new commission, new body of work, which is another really exciting component of my job, working with an artist directly to build a particular piece or theme or what have you, and again, building the support from outsiders, collectors and others that want to see that work come into the world. So every day is a little bit different. I am on my feet a lot, which is why I'm often wearing sneakers, running around. I'm talking to people a lot. I'm writing a lot about artwork. I'm really just kind of always at the core building excitement for who I think are some of the most exciting living artists of our day, and building excitement and enthusiasm with collectors, philanthropists, others for that work. So it's a lot of audience building as well.
So I'm hearing that you're buying things that appeal to you when you started out, and the same for you. And I'm wondering, Leah, if there's a need for a beginner to have any kind of expertise.
No. Absolutely not. I think, Conrad, you're a really great example. You saw a wonderful exhibition and you got really excited about it. I think, I'm really passionate about arts education at a young age. That's kind of how I got here. I grew up going to art lessons every Saturday morning for the most part at the Muscarelli Museum, which is connected to William and Mary, which is in Virginia, where I grew up. There's a wonderful show on view there that's touring through the American Federation of the Arts now. But yeah, so I grew up kind of getting that access to artwork from a young age. And it's funny because I did not travel a lot as a child, and really I feel like I got to know the world and was able to travel through looking at artworks in a book or artworks on view in this small museum. But that's really, I think, all you need. I think you need a sense of curiosity, and I think you need some patience, and I think you just really should start looking at things. The most important thing that I think you can do is hone your eye and vision and what you like. It will not be the same as everyone else, and that's great. It's your perspective, and that's something that to celebrate. So no, you do not need experience. You don't need tons of art classes. You don't need entree to really exclusive parties. You don't need even a ton of money. You just, I think, really need a willingness and a curiosity.
If I can
Please.
insert myself, I wanted to go back to 2 words that you used in your opening remarks, Ingrid, and that was community and accessibility. And I think that when you're thinking about starting, or if you're midway into the process, or if you're, all the way into the process, that is something that those facts are things that you should always consider. Art is community. Art is also a part of an ecosystem. And for the ecosystem to be healthy, you need to have terrific artists. You need to have amazing museum professionals and museum education professionals who can give the information that you need to be able to find your own way into any exhibition. And, just like in Renaissance days, artists need patrons. And they need friends and supporters, and they need to know that their time spent in the studio making works of art is important. And it's important not just to them, but important to the broader community at large. So that's the role that I'm really excited about playing. And I am happy to lend work to most places, only because I was told a long time ago that you should never talk about art without having art in the background. There are a couple slides, or some slides, and to that point, this is work by Rena Banerjee. No, in my home, I do not have wall labels. But at the time that Amy Gutman, who was the president of the University of Pennsylvania, became the ambassador to Germany, Amy reached out to me and she wanted a collection of art lent to both the residents and to our embassy there that was work by women and by people of color. And those are two collecting areas that I collect strongly in both of those camps. So most of Rena's work isn't something that's portable that you can, easily put in a wooden crate and ship overseas. But this particular piece is painted on a wood panel. You'll be able to see it in person soon, because it's in A Nation of Artists, the show that Leah referred to that's opening on April 12th. It is a beautiful, sumptuous painting, and I came to have it because Rena was doing a show here at PAFA. She was also teaching here. We became friends. I was fascinated by her artwork, but I realized as much as I would love her pink Taj Mahal, I didn't have the space in my house for it. So I happened to be reading her catalog late one night, and I didn't see this piece. I only saw the title. Her pieces have very long titles, often like poems. I cannot remember the poem to tell you the title of this piece, but when I read it, I said, well, I need to find out where this is, and I need to have it, because just the title was so evocative to me. So I was thrilled that I was able to obtain the work and then share it with the people of Berlin for 3.5 years when Amy was in residence there, and share with PAFA. And I'm going to be so happy to welcome it home whenever that happens.
And that, I think, is a really, just to tag on to that, that's a really great example of a collector-artist relationship, because actually you were the way that you introduced me to Rena, and then I could develop a relationship with her. And it's really exciting to have this piece, which I think is still behind me, on view against not only just really wonderful works of American portraiture from our collection, but also a work that we commissioned for her as part of the show that Jody Throckmorton curated here a few years ago. So it's a very large bulb sculptural work that also incorporates a lot of craft techniques and then a sound component as well. So to be able to have that kind of ricochet across galleries of very different types of practices is really, really exciting. And I think that happens through really, generous support.
So I want to come back to you, Conrad. So we've heard no expertise necessary. We've heard buying things that we like, going on instinct. What role, if any, does research play for a beginner? Did you do any kind of research on what you wanted to collect when you first started out? Would you recommend that to others if you didn't?
Yeah, so to Leah's point, no, I didn't. I was just captivated by the fact that I'm seeing a 40-foot Mark Bradford in the Baltimore Museum of Art, and then at a holiday party for a client, a friend of mine who I was working in New York with says I could afford art, because seeing a 40-foot painting in a museum doesn't really relate to my reality to being able to have art. And so in that time, it's just what a friend of mine, Stevenson, said, it's, being present, consistent, and supportive. So what does that mean in practice? Ingrid, in my opinion, is just going out and seeing, and it can be a little intimidating, it can be a little uninviting, but if you think about, the 250 years, some of the things that are going on in the world, the art of today is going to tell the story in 50 years. And guess what? Every one of you in this room has a constitution about yourself, about where you were born and how you've lived, and then how you interpret art. And so the more you see, and then the more you allow yourself to feel, the more you learn about yourself and the objects that these artists are grateful to create. And so I did it a bunch of different ways. In the pandemic, I did, Zoom video, Zoom artist talks, Zoom studio visit, and then around 2021, I started going to museums in Washington, D.C., where I live, and then I went to an art fair, and I just kind of allowed myself the room to just be creative, curiosity, and learn.
I was just going to say there's always opportunity to, again, develop that eye and just kind of learn. There's look around for open studio events happening. We have an open studios event happening here once a year, maybe twice a year, once a year definitely. There's every fall, and I believe it's October in Philadelphia, there's the Philadelphia Open Studios post. There are, I think Philadelphia is an amazing town for artists. Studio space is quite affordable. So there are often attendant to that a lot of open studios events, galleries, anything that you can do to develop your eye. Oftentimes people will be, especially when you're working at sort of the more emerging or mid-career level for artists, and I would say the same thing for emerging or mid-level galleries, they're actually going to be a lot friendlier than you think. Do not believe everything that you see, in movies.
Tell them what you mean by emerging and mid-career.
Yes. So emerging would be someone who, and there's, we could have a whole panel on what this really means, but to me, it's someone who is, very early in their career in terms of maybe they're just a few years out of school. If they have not gone to, had formal education, maybe they've had one or two shows. They're really just beginning to have the experience of putting their artwork out into the world for an audience. And they're only, a few years into that. I think when someone has had a major exhibition in a gallery or a museum, that's definitely what I would see as more of a mid-career. So someone who's had several years under their belt of making and putting things out into the world and having that experience. Maybe they're in a few private collections, maybe they're in a museum collection, institutional collection, maybe they've had a major commission of artwork, that I would put them more into the mid-career. We never really talk about the emerged level, and I guess we could call that mid-career or late career. I'm really excited more and more to think about artists in their late career, and how that kind of changes the scholarship and an interpretation and a relationship with the work in general.
And Anne, you had mentioned earlier to me about mid-career artists and how that is the meat for many collectors. Can you say a little bit about that?
Sure. We've got some meat on the screen right now. This is a painting by Barbara Takanaga, who shows through DC Moore in New York. You will also...
Your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Forgive me, those online. It's an intimate room here. I feel like I know everybody. There's meat on the screen, a painting by Barbara Takanaga. She shows through DC Moore in New York. I discovered Barbara years ago when Lee Alter donated her collection of art by women to PAFA. And I had the pleasure of visiting her home museum and saw the two Takanaga paintings that were coming. Asked the curator at the time, Bob Casalino, who will be opening Bodies and Souls next week, along with Michelle Donnelly in the 8th row. And I just said, Bob, what's where's the price point for this artist? And he told me, The pieces that are in PAFA's collection from Lee are smaller than this piece. I went up, D.C. Moore, there was a show of her work. Her work excites me in every possible way. And this particular piece, which you'll have the joy of seeing in a Nation of Artists, opening April 12th, is a piece that she did, one of the few that she did using automotive paint, a reflective automotive paint. So the colors change constantly depending on where you are in relationship to the painting and what the light conditions are. So in this instance, you can see it's this greenish brown, but it turns vibrant blue. So it really has a life of its own. And Barbara's work is, selling at prices that would be mid-career. I'm thinking that would be, 35 to 70 or 80. Are you good with that?
Yes, I am.
So, it's approachable for many collectors, and there are lots of super talented mid-career artists.
Fantastic. And mid-career galleries.
Yeah.
And mid-career galleries. And mid-career galleries as well. Great. So that being said, can collecting start at $500? If somebody has a $500 budget, a $100 budget, somebody can. How, Conrad, would you advise somebody to set a budget if they're first starting out and they have no idea, they don't have a lot of money? What's a good guideline for spending on art when you're first starting out?
And just, first, before you set a budget, know that this is prayerfully life is long, right? So I think sometimes when you get the bug, because if you do it and you allow yourself to see and feel, you're just going to want to do everything. And I remember taking friends to the museum and to take them to an art fair, and as soon as I took them to art fair, they're overwhelmed. They're like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, because it's like this whole new world that sits right below our eyes. So I just want to share with you that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so I tell people that you can start for $50, right? You can find a poster of a show, right? That typically is, maybe $25 to $50. You can find a print, for $100 to $200 of a original work that an artist has done. And this is all fine art, right? And so you don't have to start, with X thousands of dollars, but the more that you allow yourself to see and feel, the more that you allow yourself to be comfortable, that's when you can start setting okay, I'm a little comfortable, I got my feet under me, I'm going to spend $1,000 on art this year. And I'll tell you, even in the pandemic, I bought my first original work on Clubhouse. I don't know if you all remember that. If y'all remember that phenomenon during the pandemic, literally I was listening to an art auction in a room in Clubhouse and watching the artist present the work on Instagram Live.
Oh my goodness.
And she's an amazing artist from Chicago, and it was $400. And I have it, and it's very important to me because that was my very first piece of original artwork. And so just to want to give you confidence that you can start this path in a number of different ways, and then when you grow into it, you can decide that, hey, okay, I'd like to do a more sizable investment in art, but just get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I can just add, I think that's so funny, Conrad, because I see more and more as sort of our support systems for artists are shifting in recent years, post-pandemic. More and more artists are turning to channels like Instagram or other online marketplaces to sell smaller works. So like an edition, like a print or a multiple, like you could purchase from the Brodsky Center, or I've purchased like magnets before, or small, very small sculptures that are going to support cost to making a larger work. Can I embarrass you for a second? Is that okay? I guess. Yeah, I guess the answer is yes.
When have I ever stopped her?
So another artist in our collection that I'm so thrilled to have in the collection is Danny Whitehawk, who recently closed a really significant monographic show at the Walker Art Center. And went and saw the show and brought back pairs of earrings for all of us curators here. And I'm wearing mine today. So these are Danny Whitehawk designed earrings. So this is I think. It's art. To me, it's artwork, and I'm really happy to be able to live with that. In I guess all the ways. So like that is a thing. That is art. So if you have, if you want to buy a pair of earrings and wear it, I would totally consider that an artwork. But yeah, I would say do not be intimidated. I mean, I think even if you have, the point I'm trying to make is, $25, $50 can get you in the door. And I would also just add, there's a lot of attendant costs sometimes to collecting artwork. So there's insurance, there's storage, there could be crating to send things across the globe or down the street. So that's just something to be mindful of. And also, framing is something that we haven't mentioned. That's just something to be mindful of. You could buy something for $50. Like I once did for a benefit for for Printed Matter, which is an art book nonprofit in New York. I bought literally a $50 postcard. And then I was like, I'm going to get this in a special frame. And the frame was like, yeah, it's going to be $400. So, that's just something to be mindful of as you're going into it.
And if I could just say briefly on framing, when you get there, right, like when you choose to get to the original work, it's about preservation. So there's a cost to the artwork and there's a cost to make sure it's preserved. So yes, framing could be like, eek. But do you want to keep this object that was made in a special time in history? Do you want it to survive and thrive for the next 20 years? So making sure that you think about the total cost of the artwork plus the framing.
And pay for the top of the line glass. I know it's going to hurt when you are presented with three options, and one is super affordable, and one is affordable, and one is super high. But it's worth it. Your art is worth it. And it might not be the value, but it's what the art means to you. That is the most important thing, I think, in this discussion. And I'm going to add something we didn't talk about, Ingrid, and that is the one that got away. I think we all have ones that have gotten away. I sort of have one for every decade that I've been collecting, which is tragic because it means I haven't learned my lesson yet, but I'm going to endeavor to try. And years ago, right when I became involved at PAFA, our then curator, Sylvia Yant, put on this terrific exhibition by the artist behind me. She works primarily, Judith Schechter is her name. Most of her work at the time, all of her work was in stained glass. She had a dealer that he and I just couldn't find a way to make it work, which is saying something because I think I'm pretty accommodating. But it didn't work, and it was frustrating. So I figured, well, I'll give it time. I'll, follow her in the secondary market. I'll see where I can pick up a Judith Schechter that won't involve this particular gallerist. Well, my stained glass piece never arrived, but she did this one work as a special piece. She doesn't generally work on paper, but she did this piece, and I fell in love with it. It has all of the characteristics that you would expect from a Judith Schechter glass piece as far as subject matter and coloration and figuration. So even though the glass got away, I was able to, put some salve on my soul that I could get this piece. I wanted to also mention a couple other fabulous entry points if you're collecting. PAFA, which is educated or had teachers or has had shows for every major American artist, has a great art program that is in the gift shop. We also have the print sale, which is in December. And many years, it's an off-cycle year, but next year there will be the annual student exhibition. And those are great sort of gateway events because you can talk to the artists and realize that they're people too. It's not, you shouldn't be intimidated because of the fact that they're an artist. They're just people. Other examples, and this one's coming up, so, you know, get online and go, is In Liquid, which is an organization in Philadelphia that creates, gives representation to artists who are at that emerging point or don't currently have gallery representation for one reason or another. The work is often very strong, and all of art, they will be having a series of events and presentations where you can purchase. And if you're looking for a mid-career artist who's doing something really exciting, that would be November. An organization called RAIR, RAIR, which has an artist in residency program, and that's what the funds support. And they, at their auction, it's a small number of items, but they are pulling from all across the country, really important artists. And I was happy to solve one of my needs. I often like to collect for historical periods of time. And so through RARE, during COVID, which was a great collecting time period, I think for many of us, I wanted something that represented COVID and what we've been through as, you know, as a global presence in everyone's life. And I found a piece at RARE by Alex Lucas, and it's fabulous and reminiscent of all the highway signs that you would see when you were driving around that said "Stop the Spread." Alex abstracted it a bit. It just says "the spread," but these are all opportunities that are available to everyone that you can get in. And guess who's at the parties and auctions? Artists. So it's another opportunity to jump into the pond.
And other collectors as well, who you can ask
Compete
questions
against.
of. Yeah. So, and did you want to add something, Leah? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to know what Conrad's won. What got away from you?
Yeah.
Many.
The mini? Okay.
I'll tell you about the first one. So I'm a proud alum of Howard University, and I went to a virtual studio talk with an artist named Jewel Ham. She had just graduated from Howard in 2020. And she had this piece called Revelation, and it was this woman figure with red skin, and then it was just fire in the background, but for some reason it just kind of like grabbed me. I'm like, what is going on? Like, and so, you know, boldly at the time during COVID, which was crazy, I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm Conrad, went to Howard University, you know, there's Revelation available. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. And she said, yes, it is. She said, it's $2,000. And then also in COVID, I'm like, we finna die. Like, I don't know if I want to spend, you know what I'm saying, $2,000, you know what I mean? And then I said, I'll get back to you. But then I saw that she was doing prints for $200. So I got one. And it's one of my favorite works in the collection. But now she's like 5 years later, like, she's represented by Jeffrey Deitch, who's one of the biggest gallerists in the world, and that $2,000 painting is like 25x now. Yeah. I'm not joking, like 25x. And it's not just about like the value of it, but it's like I had an emotional reaction to seeing Revelation at the time. But because of the conditions, the state of the world, not wanting to die, I didn't get it. But luckily I do have a piece in my collection, and that just happens multiple times if you join this world. And there's another artist right now, Kwame Gomez, who I did a studio visit with her last year, and I'm having an emotional experience in her studio, and now she's with another blue chip gallery, and she has a show tomorrow in New York. And so that's why I said life is long, prayerfully. And so the more you do this, you'll just trust your instinct on what to do and what not to do, and so on and so forth. So I got endless examples of artwork that got away.
And I just want to say really quickly, we've talked a little bit about value and price points and emotional value versus the material value. There's a really great book called Talking Prices, if you want to pick that up, that kind of goes probably more into that than you ever want to know. But anyway, just to add to your reading list if you're really interested in that.
Oh, great. And I also think that auction records are public. So if you're interested in an artist and you know that they had a show last year or whatever at Sotheby's, you can go to the Sotheby's website and look up the auction records and see kind of what that artist is selling for. Were you gonna?
You can also get a membership to, it does cost, but ArtNet, and look up.
Yeah, ArtNet. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So just to switch gears a little bit, I want to ask everybody this: how does collecting reflect your values?
Great question.
Anybody can start. Anne?
Want me to start?
Yes, please.
You've already heard that I primarily collect work by women and by people of color who have traditionally been marginalized in the art world. And this institution, actually, the Pennsylvania Academy, has spent tens of years focusing on collecting works by women and by people of color. And that is something that is very meaningful to me, because I don't think that it's your gender or your color that determines the talent that you have as an artist. Behind us is a painting by Elizabeth Columba, a watercolor study that happened during COVID. Elizabeth and I had gotten to know each other through a studio visit in COVID. And we have continued that relationship until today, and it will continue on. But, and in fact, she, at my asking, lent work to Amy Gutman's ambassadorial position. So I think it's that defines it. I also have deep beliefs and love of the environment. So there are other works of art. Let me see if there are any of them here. Well, that is a great Philadelphia ceramicist, Margarita Hagen. She teaches ceramics here occasionally. And she also has major shows at museums and elsewhere. And that's just a tiny little piece of a whale eye. I also have an odd collecting bent where I collect 19th century paintings of the Arctic and Arctic shipwrecks.
I don't think it's odd, but yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks
Majestic.
for
Professional opinion.
So there's an example of that. This is a detail from this painting, which is an artist by Mia Rosenthal. If the painting probably looks familiar for you in a more fleshed out way, and it's a painting by Cole called The Oxbow, and that's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art collection. And it was important for Mia to incorporate all of the flora and fauna and to create the picture out of the living things in the environment, instead of looking at the environment as a static space, recognizing that it is a living, breathing space filled with this ecosystem when it's healthy. And then you can imagine what you might lose from the landscape if the southern bog lamino went away. So, there you go. Oh, here's another great collecting opportunity. This is a Bo Bartlett painting that I bought years ago at Bacchanal. Bo was there and he was auctioning the work, and it certainly cost less to buy it at Bacchanal. Plus I had a really, great dinner and some lovely wine, and came home with this painting.
Bacchanal is our annual wine gala held every year, so for people who aren't familiar.
Right, and then this is a painting, sorry, saw it earlier, with Ollie the dog sitting to give you a sense of the scale. It's a very large piece by the artist Donald Odida, who, if you've been to MoMA lately and you've walked in, he has, of course, muralized the lobby in an amazing way that has a soundtrack that goes along with it. If you've been to the Clifton Center at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, he has a mural there. This was an early piece, and I actually met Odili at a dinner party for another artist that I've collected, Kahinda Wiley, and I had such great conversation with both gentlemen. And I was heading to South Africa the next day that I went to to Odili's gallery in Cape Town. This is an ASE purchase. This is one that got away because it had a partner. They were sold individually, but there was another one. And this one, the pillows, the Japanese pillows are falling. It's painted on wood. And in the other one, they were rising. I don't know what it says about me that I only bought the falling pillows. This was another ASE purchase, or it was my first ASE purchase. And this was at a time when the Hamilton building, the building we're in now, did not exist. And this was Christopher Cox, an MFA grad, and painted this piece. It's called Behold, the Center is Empty. And it, at that time, the MFA showed in the Cast Hall Studios in the historic landmark building. These are two works of art that you might not think would go together, but they do. The first is another MFA grad from PAFA, and underneath it is a painting by my Icelandic friend's father, who is an artist. And it's really playing on the idea of the concept of landscape. In Iceland, the idea of landscape has a vaster definition than we would think of. And the piece that Kyle did above it was defining a liminal space that I thought they were perfectly paired. This is a work by Roberto Lugo, a terrifically talented ceramicist. I happened to, through In Liquid, be at the first showing of his work. I can't tell you how many years ago that was. And I picked up this jar, which I loved. That's a portrait of Roberto wearing the Flyers hat. And Roberto's work is now in museums throughout the country. The Metropolitan Museum of Art being, I guess, the most famous. There's Elizabeth Colombo's work across the hall from my work at Amy's house. Okay, I'll end on this note, and then don't let me speak. This is a collection of plates that were created by PAFA graduates to be auctioned at a Bacchanal, and they sold one year, and they sold very successfully. And the people who bought them were dear friends. There came a time when they wanted to return the gift and put it up for auction again, because I think to them, and to me as well, it felt a little sacrilegious to be eating off of, a wonderful work by a PAFA artist. So they returned it to Bacchanal, put it up for auction. I bought it at Bacchanal, bought the pieces at Bacchanal, and then I donated them to PAFA. And these works are installed on the 5th floor near the archives, because that's where they belonged. I have a belief that art is only art when other people see it and experience it. And in this instance, the proper way for this to be seen and experienced was in an institution, not on my dining table.
Yeah, I mean, and the more you do this, it's like cool for me just to listen to Anne, right? And just go through all that and the history. And this is what I mean. It's like, Perfectly Life's Long, you have all these stories and experiences and what they mean to you. And you get to share that with somebody. And you get to know yourself better and you get to know someone else better. So for me, the Woody Art Collection is a love letter dedicated to the support, stewardship, and advancement of the objects in my care. And so if anyone here has gotten a love letter from a parent or from a sibling or from a loved one, you likely want to keep it. You likely want to preserve it. You likely want to take care of it. And then the second part of it, how it aligns with my values, I see myself as an active role in supporting the objects that are in my care. And the reason why I say it's in my care, specifically what Anne said, right? So if, I've only been collecting for 6 years, but hopefully, some fabulous curator like Leah will like work and I can donate it to a museum or donate it to Howard University or a school, because art is enjoyed by the community. And so being able to, live out these values as a patron, as a collector, as a trustee is absolutely aligned with the impact that I want to make in the world.
Fantastic. And Leah, can you just talk a little bit about how, we've sort of heard this, but how collecting can shape what kinds of art gets seen and sold?
Big question. It shapes it in a lot of different ways. Certainly, it's interesting working with living artists because, as Conrad is saying prayerfully, their lives are going to be very long and they're going to keep making. So depending on when, you as a private collector or as an institutional collector are coming to them, they could be at a very different stage in their career. They could be making wildly different work. They could be, later in life and making wildly different work than they were in their earlier years. A lot of women artists in recent years have only really gained significant institutional or otherwise recognition in later years. I'm thinking about the artist, Cuban-born artist Carmen Herrera, or even Louise Bourgeois, who I think showed at the Venice Biennale when she was in her 60s or 70s, and before then really wasn't recognized at all. So it really, to have the kind of recognition in the form of financial support or institutional showcase, which is also often means financial support, it can really kind of change the arc of a career if it's done, if it's earlier in the career. And I think we've seen, especially during the COVID years, that being done really irresponsibly, sadly, and seeing huge prices and huge market inflation for certain artists that is not sustained long term. And that's something to really think about if you are a collector. You're going to potentially change someone's life and their career, and what do you want that change to be? Do you want it to be for the betterment of them and for all of the people that can see their work, or do you want it to not be that? So that's something to think about as well. So I don't know if I'm totally answering your question. I'm kind of going off on a few tangents, but I think there's a lot of responsibility. It's not something to take lightly, even though there's a lot of different entry points and access points. So even if you are spending, let's say, $25 or $50 on your small postcard or your small your work, you are still taking in someone's idea, someone's expression. That could be, if it's coming into a museum collection, it could be really, again, very significant. It could drive up prices on the private side of things. Certainly it's going to change their secondary market going to that. So there's a lot of different kind of elements and aspects to think about, and not a decision to kind of, take lightly, even though you oftentimes just immediately have the emotional response to a work.
Thank you. So we are getting close to the end of the session. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, ma'am. Here, hold on.
Oh,
We'll get a microphone.
I can speak gladly. I just wanted to ask, how important do you think it is to see something in person versus the websites and seeing an auction online?
100%. 100%. I want to make sure and thank you for the question. The ability and the privilege to see and feel as you get more invested in your art collecting and art patronage journey. You can see it on Instagram, you can see it on a website, but just the ability to just sit in front of it and be patient and to see what the work is saying to you and allow yourself to imagine and be thoughtful and ask questions. And so I much encourage people to go out into the world, go into a museum, go into a gallery and see and feel.
I'm going to be a contrary voice. Trying to find an example. I used to be like Conrad, but then the world's gotten too big and I've gotten too busy. So, and I have to say that COVID made me deal with this much more easily than otherwise, because prior to COVID, I did generally want to see, touch, feel, but if it was something, and I did it completely blind during COVID with a fabulous artist, Ellie Eggleston, who is Icelandic but works in the United States, and his painting blew me away. This particular piece I bought sight unseen, except for a PDF that arrived. It was a gentleman that I'd known for a number of years. He had a gallery in New York, he had a gallery in London, and he was concentrating his efforts in Dubai. So he had some things that he wasn't necessarily going to move to Dubai, and said, hey, do any of these interest you? This work is by an artist named Amy Lincoln. Amy is a Tyler MFA grad. I had been looking at her work for years at the gallery that she shows through in New York, Speroni Westwater, disappointing them with every visit that I made because I just didn't find the one. I saw lots of beautiful ones, but I didn't find the one. And what I was looking for was one of her works that had she has a very specific language, which, to Leah's earlier point, has shifted slightly during her career, but it always involves clouds, it always involves waves, it always involves celestial happenings, and often it involves rainbows or color gradations. So when I opened up the email from Tamar and I saw this piece, I'm like, okay, done, ship it.
The only thing I'll add to that is, Anne is right, but you've seen this work before, and I did the same thing. There was a gallery in Milan that sent me a PDF of an artist that I'd followed for years, and it was such a privilege to say, wow, that on that page looks fascinating, but when I got it, it was painted on a moving blanket. And it's like, and so that, but that's kind of what, but now
Somebody did not read his material.
Well, I did, but if you read the material in the PDF, it didn't say anything about the moving blanket.
Makes hanging easy.
And no, it was very hard to hang it. My framer had to do all these other things.
Oh, you framed it.
But it's called living off borrowed time. So when you look at the PDF, now luckily I had seen many shows of Ryan in New York and other places before, but it's like, if I hadn't had that first, then I can, but it's like, those are just the wonderful discoveries of art along the way. So just want to add that.
So we're gonna have to, it's
I know.
1 o'clock.
Sorry, I
And,
apologize.
thank you all for coming. I wish we had more time. Maybe we'll.
Yeah, she's
Look at
got
me.
the talking
Oh, yes.
stick.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
I just wondered how you think about the quality and character of a collection as a whole over time, and when you make decisions about selling work in order to acquire new work.
Great question.
That's a great question.
I'm not good at selling work because probably my emotional involvement. So that means I have art storage, which I used to have art storage in my house. Now I have external art storage. And I'm also have found opportunities recently to share works of art that I'm not planning on showing anytime soon in my home with others. So I just had someone who moved into a new building, and he had a very distinct idea of what he wanted in his bathroom, and he only had one tiny little work in a very large bathroom. So I'm like, let's go to art storage, and he pulled out 4 paintings. That makes me happy because in art storage, I'm usually the only one seeing them. But if they live in somebody's house, it doesn't have to be in my house. If they live in somebody's museum, it doesn't have to be my museum. Because what activates them is just someone seeing them and spending time with them. I have 2 different tracks, as you've learned with collecting. I have the 19th century Arctic thing going on, and then I have, the commitment to works by women, artists of color, and environmental artists.
Thank you. And now we're gonna have to stop. I'm so sorry. We should definitely do this again. We should make this a whole series. This has just been a fantastic conversation. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and please come back. Thank you.